Testing, testing, testing. Testing, 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 testing. Testing, testing. Testing, testing. Good morning, folks. This is another live stream episode with Montana Outdoor Science School. Today's subject is all about canines or canids. This is the dog family. I'm going to talk a little bit about dog skulls, but mostly I'm going to be showing you guys some examples of the dog family skulls that I have here. As usual, my name is Melanie. I am one of the instructors with Moss. If you have any questions, please feel free to type those into the comments. I will try really hard to help answer any of those questions, but we also have somebody on hand ready to type answers as well. So feel free, if you have any questions about anything at all, please go ahead and type those in and we'll get those answered for you. Today I have a couple of examples of some dog skulls. These are specifically the wild dogs of North America. So in the back here I have what I used last time actually, which is a gray wolf skull, and this one's actually a cast of a skull. It's not directly the skull itself, but then I also have here a coyote skull, which is really neat. And so I'm going to talk about those two, and then I'm actually going to move on to a couple of other skulls I wanted to show you guys. Everything in the dog family, they typically have some of the same structures, and their skulls are very similarly shaped. They have a lot of the same functions. We can see that they are carnivores based on a lot of what types of teeth they have. If I get real close in here, you can see they have the big sharp canines. The premolars are also rather sharp, and then very noticeable for many carnivores is these back molars being very sharp as well. I'm going to go into some details about specifically this molar right here. This is the first molar on canine's jaws. You can see it's also this one here. I'll talk about those a little bit later. But with carnivores, once again, we have the great big sagittal crest on the back of the skull, and that's where muscles will anchor onto. This is the muscle that gives canines their really powerful bite, their jaw power. You can also see on canines that they have these really big, long snouts, and that is part of what makes canines so particularly good at being able to sniff out things. I wish I had a skull that had a really good nasal cavity that I could show you guys, but I can show you kind of the depth of this nasal cavity. I want to see if I can focus on that dark area a little bit. You can see that it goes in there quite deeply, but if you could imagine, this whole nasal cavity area would be full of tissue that has a lot of olfactory receptors. Essentially, it has cells that are capable of picking up scents, sending those signals to the brain. If you remember, of course, the brain is back here. The nasal cavity, though, it being longer, has more of those receptors, which is why we have a lot of dogs in our world that end up having jobs related to sniffing things out. If you've ever been to the airport, you may have seen the canine units that are part of security there. If you've ever seen, let's see, I suppose there's a few movies out there, the Fox and the Hound. The Hound is a specific breed of dog that is really good at being able to smell all kinds of things in the world. So the nasal cavity is a huge component of canines. They have a really long snout, really long muzzle that helps with this. You can also see that even on the wolf skull, their nasal cavity is quite long, quite extensive. It is essentially, if I could show you guys a cross section of this, it would be everything from up in here all the way forward, and it would be deep in all this area behind the bone that we see right here right now. So you have a big nasal area. There's also something really special about the teeth on canines, but also all carnivores, and this I'm going to show you on this coyote skull here. So with the coyote skull, if you notice on this molar, It has two really sharp ridges on it. This one back here also has those two really sharp ridges on it. This is part of what gives canines or canids their really powerful tearing capability. This tooth comes down on top of this tooth. I'll put this back together so y'all can see that. And it really gives them the powerful bite they need to really tear into any prey that they may have. Let's see if I can get that to show you guys. So that jaw slips right on top of that jaw there, and you can see those two teeth come together really, really cleanly, really nicely. I learned today as I was researching that these two pairs of teeth will actually keep themselves sharpened their whole lives because of the way that they come down on top of each other, which I think that this is really cool. I see somebody says that we hope we keep records of this so their students can watch. We do post these videos to YouTube. We have a YouTube channel that you can subscribe to. You can see all kinds of other videos that we have updates on as well. Going back to these teeth here, there's something else really neat about these teeth that I wanted to show you guys, specifically with that molar again. On this molar, it has a slightly flatter area towards the back and these more mountainous, taller regions towards the front. On the back end, you can tell a certain animal's diet based on this sort of ratio between these two regions. On the front, if there tends to be these larger, taller regions, and then the back, if it's a smaller, flatter region, you know you have a carnivore. As you get to be a more omnivore, have a more omnivorous diet, or if it's a vegetative diet too, then this flat area will be much, much bigger. The front area where it has these tall peaks tends to be smaller. So essentially, you can tell this creature tears into meat because it has these sharp, sharp points, and it's a lot bigger than the back area there where it's a little bit more shorter. So I thought that was something cool that y'all might want to know about these skulls. I have another thing that I wanted to show y'all. I don't just have 2 skulls today, I actually have 4 skulls, and my other 2 skulls belong to actual domestic dogs. Here is what they look like. So these ones I was actually gifted over the course of my life, and it's really easy for folks to find skulls out in nature and think, they found something that it belongs to a wild animal. And what I've actually now experienced through anecdotal periods of my life is that people end up finding dog skulls without realizing it. So this one is, I have actually no idea what kind of skull it is as far as the domestic dog goes, but you can tell it's quite large. If you look at it compared to that gray wolf, look at how comparable it is in size. It's quite similar. But there's a couple of things that you can use to tell if you have what is a wild dog skull. So that's your wolves, that's your foxes, that's your coyotes, or if you have a domestic dog skull. I'll bring in my other domestic dog skull. This one also was given to me. Somebody thought it was a fox, and I can understand why. If you look, it's about the same size as this coyote one, a little bit smaller, which is what you would expect with a fox skull. But here's how I know that these are dog skulls. If you look very specifically at the forehead, notice on the wolf, it's quite a bit flatter. Versus you come over here to the dog skull, and it has quite a bit more of an angle on the forehead. And if you can imagine, we often see this when we meet dogs, or if we have our own dogs, they have quite a big forehead on their faces. Versus this wolf over here, it's a lot narrower, it's a lot flatter, and you can see it too in this coyote skull versus this other littler dog skull. So you can really see it on these two, I feel like. Again, it's a flat, more narrow surface on the forehead versus on this littler dog skull, it ends up being quite a bit more angled downward. So I thought that that was pretty neat to learn about these dog skulls. I was gifted this one and told it was a black bear skull, and there's a few reasons why it's not a black bear skull. The number one thing being its teeth indicate that it is not a black bear. On bears, they don't have a tooth right behind their canine tooth like this. They have a gap here, And also, as you've all been learning through these videos, the molars are too sharp, too angled to be that of something that is omnivorous. So this is a dog skull, nevertheless, a canine skull, but I wanted to show you guys that. But an easy mistake to make if you are not necessarily trained to ID skulls. Even I'm just an amateur. I could always be missing something that I could get corrected on. Same thing with this guy here. Someone thought it was a fox skull, like I said, and then you look at the teeth, and even though it is missing teeth, you can count the teeth. You could see what kinds of teeth are remaining, and these molars are just so sharp. They're so tall. That is not something that belongs to anything other than a canine skull there. It's a shame I am missing the other teeth here. That is something that comes with the risk of finding skulls in the wild. So that is my little chat today about skulls. I'll give you guys another kind of sweep through to take a look at these here. You can see again these sutures. These are those dark lines on the skull. Those are the different bones of the skull fused together. You can see some really good examples across this nasal cavity here. We talked last time, or I guess 2 times ago, about how eyes on a skull, if they face forward, then that is something that is a predator. Could be omnivore, could be carnivore, but it's typically a predator, and we can see that on all of these skulls here, that this eye sockets, these orbitals, are facing forward. And the good old gray wolf skull that I showed you guys last time. So I wanted to give y'all an opportunity to take a look at those and be able to compare them, be able to see the differences in what they are. So that's everything I have for y'all today. Thanks for joining us once again. If you liked our video, please follow us on Facebook. You can also subscribe to our YouTube channel with Montana Outdoor Science School. We are often making videos these days to keep us all occupied during our quarantine inside. Please feel free to visit and also post anything that you may find or see or create yourself onto our Facebook page. Thanks for joining us, everyone. Hope to see you next time.